big stunner, 100. You stupid, just shut up. Keep breezy, I'm gonna. I'm big boy, done.
John, episode 14.
Yes, sir.
Getting there. It's been fun. I'm gonna go to the holidays here, and things will be getting a little funky. But then been fun.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it, man.
Is the weather getting cooler in Texas?
A little bit. I mean, it's a little cooler at night, but it still gets to the 80s, 90s during the day. So, like, it's a little chilly today. I mean, it dipped down to the 40s, 50s last night, and it's mid 60s today. So, yeah.
No, Texas heat never lets up. But yeah, no, I'm on the road, as you can see. So people watching are noticing I'm probably in a different place. I'm in my van. I have a big Sprinter van that's my office on the road, and so I'm in Northern California. I'm in the Redwoods, on my way home from. I was in Arizona and Southern California, now heading back to Portland. So just working along the way. I got my office in here, and it allows me to.
How's it been working going to these places? Like, has there been
great.
Any surprises, both good or bad, in all this?
It's great. I mean, it really is. What I tell people is having this is like a time machine, because my office is here and I have a place to sleep. I am never in a hurry. I don't have to be in a hurry. I can just pull over and work. I can just pull over and sleep. I have everything I need. My bikes go in here. It's a mess right now, so I'm not going to show anybody if you're watching. But yeah, it's just kind of life is with me here. And it's not van life. Like, I'm not trying to do that. Like, I don't have a bathroom and a kitchen in here.
No little like stove or nothing to cook with.
When I get I can cook. I have a water pot, one of those steamer pot things.
Yeah,
you can warm some water, so I'll make some coffee or whatever, some oatmeal. But I'll usually eat at a restaurant. And when I get to where I'm going, I'm staying in a hotel. Like, I'm not trying to stay, or I'm staying with friends or family, like on this trip. So I'm not a van lifer. That's just, I don't think that's my vibe. But
it seems like the internet's working well.
Yeah, no, the internet, 5G is great. It works well. But yeah, no, it's just that the time machine component. That's why I have it. It allows me to not have to make the decision to have to take days off from working to travel or to go do things, even in town. I like to play outside. I like to do things outside. And so, a common way I use it is if I'm going to ride bikes with the guys at lunch, we're going to go hit a mountain bike trail or do a road ride or something. We want to meet at noon, but it's on the other side of town. I have meetings and work to do right up until noon. So what I just do is I go to where we're going to meet up in the morning, and I just work. And then when it's time to roll out, and I just get out of the van, hop on my bike, and go to it. So
that's super cool, man.
It really, it's been cool. But yeah, I want to talk about your homework first. I want to talk about Baraka, which was last week's homework, and it's a different kind of film. What'd you think? What was your first impression? Try and describe what it was, maybe.
Oh man,
for people who've never seen it. What is Baraka? What was the movie? What was the medium?
Yeah, there is a lot there. There's definitely a lot to talk about. But I would say the first word would be masterpiece. I mean, it feels like true art. And it dives into, and I think the cool part about it is it leaves a lot of room for interpretation. Yeah. It's a documentary, and so
wasn't that true about art? That I want to hang on that sentence real quick. It leaves lots of room for interpretation, which I think is really true of real art, because art. I say the difference between art and design is just that. Like, design, is you're creating something that is supposed to mean something specific or be used in a certain way, where art is really left up to whoever's consuming it to give their interpretation. So, great point.
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, it's art, and that's what I loved about it. Is it's been a little bit since I've dove into some art, and I've been hungry for that. And so it's like I feel like I went to a museum in a way and saw a show by an artist. And to me there were some themes. One was just it captures this grandiose perspective of nature and Mother Earth.
Yeah.
And, it takes you to, when they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, this is a video. So it's 1,000 pictures. So it just captivates you. And it goes to these places that are so huge. And it does a great job of capturing nature. And then the next thing is I feel like it just puts this big blanket over the human race and or like the soul, human soul, and how even though we're so different, there's something about us that's still the same.
Yeah.
And so it shows these different perspectives from different cultures of different sizes. And some feel like you're going way back in time, where sometimes it goes right into what goes into the future. So there's there's this theme of nature, and then a theme of humans and culture, ceremony, religion. And then in that, I feel like that third kind of theme for me is like within all of us, this longing for transcendence of something greater than ourselves, and it shows it more meaning.
Yeah.
And it shows it through all different ways and all different places. And the cool part about it, to add to anyone who hasn't seen it, is there's no words, so there's no direction given from someone narrating it or actors, and so it relies on this ambient soundtrack that just really draws your emotions and draws you into these moments and these places and these times and these cultures. And so the thing for me about it being a piece of art is, first of all, I came to realize, man, I need to do more, like experience this more, because I caught myself having to push myself to dial in and refocus, and how much I've gotten away from spending time with art, where in this hurry up lifestyle of, jam-packed activities and things that I got to get done, and the general worries of life, of having to pay for the things and maintain relationships with people and feel my health and feeling good, that I had to pull myself back in, because my attention span was like, okay, I get it. And it's like, okay, this is taking a while. This scene's taking a while, but that's the purpose of it. And then when I would catch myself having to say, okay, I need to just be with this and detach, it's almost meditative.
Yeah.
Where,
it is.
Like,
I think you nailed it right there. It is. You got to tell people right away. It's hard to tell people, like, there's no dialogue in this, and there's no script as it were. I'm not there. There's probably direction. There is a theme and an arc to it. Like it takes this journey of progress, basically, of all the species on Earth. The first scene is really slow. The music is slow, and it's like I think it's like a Himalayan macaque, like this monkey, hot spring around snow, just like peaceful and just in his place, and just it's perfection.
You also sense from him like this weathered, kind of tired, kind of concerned, but being sitting in a hot spring, like taking the load off and just kind of looking off in the distance. Like I related to the monkey.
You want to be there. You want to be in the hot spring with the monkey, because it looks.
I did wonder, what's going to happen when he gets out? Because it was snow.
Cold, right?
It was like freezing. Like, what is this monkey going to do?
And so it progresses. The pace picks up, and you get into what I feel like it takes you on this journey of man's impact or man's relationship with the earth. And it just, sitting with art, I think you nailed it. A lot of people will struggle with this. You get in there, and there's no superhero with a cape, it's just imagery. So to get to enjoy this, like you said, I think you nailed it. You have to be with it. You have to commit to be tuned in and not distracted. You don't necessarily have to sit, get through it in one sitting, although it's hard not to. Once you lock in, like you said, it is meditative and it's relaxing. And you can just zone out, and it's really, really, really cool. But like I said, there's no dialogue, so I think a lot of people aren't ready for that. So just kind of technical on it before you go on to the next part of your review. It was filmed, or it was released in 1992. It's an hour and a half long. Director is Ron Frick. He's got another one, so if you enjoyed this, he has one that's very similar that came out a few years later called Samsara. Same concept. It was shot in like IMAX, so it's really high quality footage. The music is brilliant. And so if you have a good TV or something like that to really lock in, it enhances the experience even more, because it is huge. So if you ever, this is one of those things where if this ever comes out in IMAX at a theater, I'm in. Like, I want to see this in IMAX. It's that immersive.
Yeah.
So good point about being with it. What else?
Yeah. I feel like I got to go on a tour, like a tour of planet Earth and the human race.
Yeah.
And so, I love getting to travel. And so, it took me to places that I don't know. I don't think I'm ever really going to get the opportunity to go to.
Right.
And it slows down, where it just captures the nuances of these places where, the camera's just sitting there and you can feel the history of the building or the people, and where maybe the progress has been here, like here in the United States versus like, a Tibetan community within these walls where these ancient traditions are still being held, to a high standard. And it's just wild to see how people, behave within their religion and the things that they do. So you get a sense of, just how powerful and how meaningful that is for each individual. So that piece of just, it's like watching the Travel Channel, but like on steroids, minus the commercials and all the goofy stuff.
No, I love it. If you enjoyed it, check out Samsara, which is very similar. I think it came out only a couple years later. Where is it? Samsara, there it is.
It also
2011, like way later. So that was more recent. So Samsara, same thing, about an hour and a half long, and it just, it's hard to describe. Like, you need to see it.
Yeah, and you can feel like the importance of nature. It'll show things that can lead your mind down more political topics of like global warming. Although it doesn't feel political in any way, maybe that's just within me that kind of brought that, like, this is a concern.
Well,
like,
it does it forces you to think about our impact on the globe without being heavy-handed, without having, much motivation. It's just showing you what is. So you see, it's kind of this clash of, you start in nature with this monkey, and then it kind of progresses into, you see a bunch of different people groups across the world seemingly kind of engaging in their religious practices. And then it starts to get into, industrialization, and you see the mechanisms and vehicles and commerce of us. And then it speeds up, like like your heart rate probably goes up if you had a heart rate monitor on through parts of this as you go on this ride. And then it comes back down. It kind of comes full circle to say, where are we? Where are you? Are you still in tune with where you started with this monkey?
Yeah.
Really
and
cool.
There was a part for me that I felt it revealed at what you described as progress within, technology or industrialization.
Yeah.
But it reveals, like, at what cost.
Yeah.
And it shows, it takes a tour through the gas chambers.
Yeah.
And then it goes to
I forgot about that. Yeah.
It goes to that one place where there's all those statues, which, man, that was wild to think about. just on a technical level, how did they crank out that many statues?
The terracotta soldiers, yeah, it goes through that,
and then it shows that room full of skulls, and it hits you too on just that the at what cost it takes for us to make these advances in, industrialization and culture, and then that those scenes in the factories where there's just hundreds, if not thousands, of people just sitting there, just rolling cigarettes, and just for hours, just doing cigarettes by hand, and then the next scene goes to a clip of a guy who looks like he's commuting, somewhere probably like Tokyo or something, very busy, and he's just standing there, at a red light, smoking a cigarette. Getting with his briefcase in his other hand, like it confronts you with a lot of things too.
Yeah, no, it how far have we come from just being that monkey sitting in a hot spring? Like is that where we're supposed to be? As I sit here amongst the redwoods, I try to stay connected to nature and art because I think they're one and the same. But have you ever have you ever been to like a proper art museum and had a moment where a piece of art, a sculpture, a painting or something captivated you and you didn't really know why? It just sucked you in and you're just and you're just there, everything just kind of went away. Have you ever had that?
Yes, I have.
Can you describe it?
Yeah. There was a art display in the museum here in Austin on UT campus, the Blount, and it was called Mike's World, and the art was set up like you're in this loft in a studio apartment where it looks like he had just left. So like there's a bed, the sheets are wrinkled up, there's a half drank cup of coffee, there's an alarm clock. In the kitchen there's a plate with some scraps of food on it, and one of the chairs at the table is kind of scooted out. And then you go through into his living room or another space, and it takes you through like his office, and it was very immersive. And so I just got lost in Mike's world, and it was one of the first times I felt like I was like getting lost within the art, the expression, and I wasn't really questioning. A lot of times when I go in the past, when I would go to an art show, art museum, I would always say, why is this on the wall? Like, this is literally like somebody just smacked a paintbrush against this a few times, and like, come on, anybody can do this. Like, I never found myself questioning, okay, what is the artist trying to show here? Or what does this mean? Or I need to feel something from this. I just went in and I was just immersed by it. And there was like 3 or 4 rooms, and I found myself walking away like, dang, that was really cool.
Right. And it takes effort. It takes effort to get, into that. And I had a similar experience. I think the last time I was at an art museum and it really, really captivated me was I discovered a type of art that is very specific to something I like. And that is, I was at the Philadelphia Museum of Modern Art in Philly, which is a fantastic museum. And they had a Cubism section. So Cubism, I could show you one. This is a Picasso piece. It's called, so those on YouTube can see, this is Cubism, and you can tell this one's kind of easy to understand, but it's a bunch of geometric shapes and shading, but it's also a portrait of what appears to be a guy, like this guy, and it's called Portrait of Wilhelm Udi by Picasso, and it for me, it forced me to do some work to tune into the paintings and try and understand what I'm seeing, what is it that I'm seeing. And so Cubism, that was a time where art really struck me. And I stayed in the Cubism wing at the Philadelphia Museum of Modern Art for like an hour, and just you'd sit in front of these. Some of them were, the one I was showing for those on YouTube was pretty easy to see. There's other ones where they're a lot more obscure, and there's delight when it kind of jumps out at you. but at the same time, even if you don't get it, just the pattern, like you would just get lost in it. Like even if you're like, no, there's not a person, there's not an animal, there's not something to be seen there. It's just to get lost in. I love getting lost in art. And Baraka, man, great film. And I wanted to see how you reacted to that before I give you one that's harder. It's more difficult.
Okay.
Because I want to kick off something. So we'll talk about that at the end. But
Okay.
I wanted to review the other end of the spectrum. Is it Chappell Roan? Chappell Roan? How do you say it? How do the kids say it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who this is.
So this is the hotness. This is the hot artist. So this is today's Madonna, if you will, and that's the comparison kind of I drew in my head as I listened to this. So Chappell Roan is kind of the zeitgeist of pop music right now. Her album from last year, 2023, is called "The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess," and I had actually heard one of the songs that on the album that I'll talk about, but didn't realize I was hearing Chappell Roan, and I wasn't hearing it in a context where you're really listening to music anyway. And so I figure I'd give it a spin. I wanted to give a spin of the popular music right now. I don't know if she's doing a Super Bowl, but she's the type of person that would do the Super Bowl,
Wow.
In the next couple of years.
Jeez, and shows how lost I am.
Yeah.
It's a really big deal.
I'm trying to stay in tune with that stuff, right? And so her album, The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess, I listened to it while I was driving. I knew I had a stretch of road the other day where I would have a solid hour, where I could listen to this album front to back and just kind of take it in, and give my feedback. It is, to be fair, it is not the kind of music that I would ever invest in. Time, money, wouldn't go to concerts. It's not to say it's not good. It's just not what I would listen to. And so my take on it is the first part of the album is like, it's party music, but specifically like girl empowerment party music. So there's lots of like call and response and like, yeah, kind of stuff where everyone, there's multiple tracks of women doing. So it sounds like you're in a club when the song is playing, and it's just that and the lyrics are really just about, I want to party with the girls, just the girls are going to party, or I'm going to party with some boys too. And that was really the theme of it. And I think the song that is, as I look at Spotify, the most popular song is called Hot to Go, which I'd heard like on a maybe a Jimmy Fallon or something like that, where a different musician was doing a cover of it and doing it kind of in a creative way. And when I heard that, I didn't know it was a Chappell Roan. Chappell Roan.
Yeah,
I didn't know it was her song. I promise you, I thought it was the jingle for Little Caesars.
What?
Like I'm like, oh, they're taking a little, because it's hot to go, and they're spelling it out HOTT. I'm like, oh, that's probably because I don't really get commercials in my reality anymore. So maybe that's the little. I swear, I'm like, because I think that's what I see in the window when you drive by the Little Caesars. Like you can go in and run and grab pizza for $5.
Hot and ready.
It's hot to go, or hot and ready. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, that's the jingle, because it sounds like that. And that's my take on the Chappell Roan. Is it all sounds like it was developed by the marketing team, because it is super catchy. That's really the hallmark of it. And have you ever heard the term industry plant?
Yes.
What does it mean?
Like it's created to sell, and they put it in a specific market to reach a certain audience, knowing we're going to put this here, we're going to put money and marketing behind it, and we're going to reach a specific audience because we know this is going to work. Yeah.
And so, when we talk about music, the group music I grew up on, or the music that's really dear to my heart, most of it is from bands or musicians or rappers who had to first write music and then perform it And then hopefully they could get a record
Right.
deal so they could
Get it,
record
yeah.
it and you could hear it.
Right.
Nowadays you can go straight to recording, but same thing. Like I have to record my music and I
Mhm.
have to get it onto Spotify or SoundCloud or whatever, get some people to listen to it. And then I, but I have to start playing little bars, little clubs, little frat parties, right? Where an industry plant never does that. Their first show is a curated showcase the record
Yeah.
label puts on for some
Yeah.
executives
Like the
to hear
Pepsi
it.
show.
Right? They've never done a live show. So if you
Yeah.
remember did they do like a reality show for one of the boy bands that was coming out of like Orlando? Like that's an industry
Mhm.
plant. They didn't
Mhm.
they it's a business decision and the business drives it. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. We've probably got some great music, and obviously Chappell Roan is really popular.
Yeah.
But I
What's-
went to
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was kind of jumping in your point there, but I was curious as you're talking, like, what's the unique artist piece that stands out about her, or like, what's the one thing that is real, or the thing that sets her apart, or
I think she's just capitalizing on women's empowerment. I think that's it, and party. So the thing I was thinking about as I'm listening to this is the conversation we had a few episodes ago when there was a comedian who said poor people don't listen to Radiohead, and we were talking about getting into your existential self to be able to understand some music, any kind of art. You have to be comfortable physically and mentally and socially and emotionally to engage with art as it is. In some cases, where the counter to that we said was a lot of country music and a lot of hip hop, which is really just simply a dialogue or a narrative about what they're seeing. So you don't necessarily have to go into your existential self.
right?
Here, it's kind of blurs the line there. When you're singing about it, the audience, and your questions is what I was thinking about when I went down this road is who's listening to this, who likes this, and I'm not pointing finger. I'm not like saying if you like this you suck. It's just
Yeah,
you're in
right.
a different
Yeah.
place than me.
Yeah.
And it really was, I was going down that road. Okay, where are they in terms of existential self? Because this is really simple. This is a narrative that isn't happening. It's a narrative you want. I want to be at the party, at the dance club, drinking and partying. So it's that part is fake, or maybe a future reality that I might be able to experience. And so I think it's someone, when I think of the four walls that need to come down for you to enter your existential self, that's physical. You have to be physically healthy and balanced. You have to be cognitively healthy and balanced. You have to be emotionally healthy and balanced, and you have to be socially healthy and balanced. When those are all at a place of stasis, then you can enter into your existential self. And I think when I'm trying to picture, okay, if I'm connected with all of those, why would I listen to this? Because I don't need the artificial, I don't desire the low grade experience of going to a club, right? So it was really hard for me to nail this down. So maybe it's the person that they're comfortable with a lack of stasis in their self. Like they don't, maybe they are socially, they're not whole, but they're okay with it. And so the way for me to artificially become socially whole is to go to a dance club. I'm trying to figure that out, but that's where I went. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to, based on how you're describing it. I have a teenage daughter, and it makes me think about her. I have two sisters I grew up with in the 80s, and so like when girls just want to have fun, or when you were describing that, I could picture them singing it in their downstairs room with their pictures of their teenage crushes on the wall and PJs dancing around like it's a party song they sing along with. And so when you were describing this artist, I was wondering how's that landing, and how's that connecting with the current culture, and something that's there, something that's underneath that maybe my daughter can feel or identify with. Like I think Billie Eilish does a great job of doing this.
Yeah,
because she's a great artist, first of all. And yeah, there are elements of it where she's backed by industry and tons of dollars. but there's things within her music that connects with, you know, their self, and either something they're longing for, something they're missing, something that's broken, or, you know, that they feel like, okay, this is like, I belong within this music, or I'm known within this music, or I can feel some things in this music that I need to feel, whether they're good feelings or bad feelings.
Yeah.
But it just makes me wonder, like, okay, now I need to go listen, and I need to see what this is all about.
Yeah.
Where is it played? What if you're walking in a mall and there's a store? What store is this artist being sang in or played in?
Right. Yeah. It's, you know, the whatever store plays at techno, so it was very techno centric. But yeah, no, it's, you know, I think that way about the music, but I think for most people, if someone really likes this, at the end of the day, they just like it. It's fast food, it's junk food, you know, it's easy, you know, you're gonna forget about it. But if that's all you're getting, you know, that's where I kind of think, well, if you really are looking for this kind of music, that's where I'm like, that's weird. I don't get it. So as I was listening to it, I was also comparing it to Madonna, who was the pop star, you know, that we grew up with. You know, when I looked at one of her albums, so I'm looking at what's it, Like a Virgin, from 19.
Yeah, and there was so much shock factor.
No, her first album, just Madonna.
There's a lot of shock factor there.
Well,
you know,
Chappell Roan does bring the shock value. It's just hard to. She has almost geisha-like, just really over the top makeup. And so I was looking at the track listings. The first thing I always look for when I see kind of, you know, this person that might be an industry plant is, did they write any of the songs? And I want to double check something to make sure that her actual name is what it is versus her legal name and what she goes by. So her occupation is singer, songwriter, born Kaylee Rose Amstutz, 1998. So she's 26. Okay, got that. And then the album. So I like to go to the track listings, and so she is listed as a writer, as Amstutz on the songs. And there's one where she is the only one. It's Kaleidoscope. That's one of her slower songs. It was interesting, but it's team written. Every song has, so, you know, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 4, 4. So there's a lot of team written stuff. And so I know Beyonce kind of went down that route where she was accused of not writing her songs and teams wrote it. And I think she actually works into her deal, is what people say. I don't know if it's a myth or what, that she, you know, puts her name on there even if she's really not writing it. So it's not uncommon for pop people like this to not really write the music, but she's got her name, her last name, or her given name on all the tracks, but it's team written. So, you know, is what it is. And then when I go to Madonna's album, her first big album, 1983, she's the only writer on it. That's a short album. There's only 8 tracks there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 8 tracks, Madonna is the sole author of the song, and then single authors on the other ones, but other people wrote them. So, which is common, you know, someone else writes a song for you. And so there's no team stuff there. So interesting. You know, I don't know. Just kind of thinking, is this real music, or is it just kind of produced by a factory team? Straight up, I didn't like it. I would never listen to this, but I'm trying. You know, I'm trying to make sure I get my finger on the pulse every once in a while.
That's good, man.
Because the Madonna stuff, was it just catching us at a right time? So, you know, when we're teenagers or in our 20s, you know, it was just easier to kind of tune into that stuff.
Yeah.
Or was it better music? I'm not the judge of that.
Right.
But I dove into the Chappell Roan. It was an experience, and I'll probably do it again with some other junk food music in the future.
Nice.
All right, I want to introduce our interviewee, Ron Callan. Ron Callan is a veteran sports broadcaster. You know, he started in sports journalism, and is currently the voice of the Oregon State Beavers football and women's basketball. And that's how I know Ron. He'll go kind of through his history in the interview of working with the Seattle Seahawks, and currently does some work there as well. That's pretty interesting. But I thought it'd be cool to just kind of hear from culture makers, and he's part of that. He's part of the dialogue, although it's in a niche out here in the Pacific Northwest. Ron Callan has some great stuff to say, and I really want to talk to him because he's a huge music fan. And I always want to talk to people who are still music fans and still listening to new stuff, especially when they're older than me. Because how do I keep it up? How do I stay in tune with art? And so I asked Ron some of those questions, and he has some great stuff to say.
That's great.
So, without further ado, Ron Callan. All right, we got Ron Callan, who I met a few years ago. I don't want to step all over what your title is, but what do we call you? What is Ron Callan known as publicly?
I think Ron Callan is the way to go. But as far as what I do, I'm a sports broadcaster by trade for the last 50 years. I did TV news for 7 years, got tired of seeing death and destruction and always wanted to do sports. And so got a job eventually doing sports full time in Seattle. I was there for 23 years working at the CBS station in Seattle. So broadcaster, dad, or maybe dad and then broadcaster. And family stuff. That's top for me.
So I met Ron. My daughter plays basketball for the Oregon State Beavers women's basketball team, and Ron is the voice of Beaver Nation across multiple sports, if I'm not mistaken. But in my world, obviously basketball, women's basketball specifically. He's at the games. He travels with the team, and when I travel with the team, he's one of my guys I can hang out with and talk shop, and have him on the Suburban Kings podcast, because Ron's one of those people where I can talk about music and movies and the arts, and it's a good conversation. And so that's kind of what we're about, bringing on regular people in some cases who are engaged with culture and want to just learn from you how you stay connected and what you're consuming and what you're creating culturally. But let's start with your history. Yeah. How did you get into to fast forward? How did you get into the sports broadcasting side of it as you pivoted your career? What did that look like? Where's the inception point?
Well, it's funny because when I was a kid, Vince, I wanted to play Major League Baseball. I got as far as a Kansas City Royals tryout camp.
I mean, better than most.
Left-handed pitcher, always in demand. And I got there and I had pretty good stuff, but he goes, why don't you go to college and work on your slider and, your sinker. And so I got to college, and between the end of that camp and the start of college, two of my neighbor, and I'm not trying to be a downer, but two of my neighbor kids who were like 3 years older than me were both killed in Vietnam. So that kind of just screwed my head up.
Yeah.
And so I said, this isn't important. Why am I doing sports or playing sports? And I stopped for about 18 months, and then I got back into it. I ended up playing soccer in college, goalie at Linfield College in McMinnville, Oregon. And, but then I got into broadcasting, and I'd always wanted to be a broadcaster. When I was like 10 years old, I would be in the shower doing the PA announcer imitation of the San Francisco Giants PA guy, batting third, number 24, the center fielder, Willie Mays, that kind of stuff.
Do you do a Harry Carey impression?
Well,
that's what I grew up on.
I'm not a good impressionist. I used to do a pretty good Nixon, but I did meet him though at Wrigley Field once. So that was, and the other one I met that was a big name broadcaster was the PA announcer for the Yankees, Bob Shepard. I got to sit in the booth with him, get this, on July 4th, 1983. A buddy of mine knew him, and I had a pass from the CBS station in Seattle to go cover the Yankee game. So I'm sitting with him, and we're watching this Dave Rigetti, a lefty.
Yeah.
July 4th, 1983, my only time at Yankee Stadium, he pitches a no-hitter. So, I thought, this is pretty cool. So that was a good trip back. But no, I've been covering sports my entire adult life, pretty much. TV news was first, and then got into covering TV sports and then radio sports. And then in 2007, I was working at a radio station in Portland, and they said, hey, Ron, do you want to be the women's basketball broadcaster? because they had an opening, and I was already doing football for Oregon State. And I said, well,
Yeah.
yeah, and think about it, 17 years ago. I mean, it was not a head turner, women's basketball, but things have
And
grown.
that was a couple years before current head coach Scott Rook. Yes.
He came in 2010, and he got things really moving in the right direction. And and I've been able to combine my loves of my life: sports, music, and traveling, and and creating.
You're a
And
Renaissance man.
it's just a fabulous job. I mean, when I was in college, Vince, I actually, because my mom got me into singing early. My mom loved Johnny Mathis
Oh, my
and
mom too.
West Side Story, the Flower Drum Song. So I got into singing in choirs, and then when I got to college, I started to sing in operas. So I was able to sing in The Marriage of Figaro, Don Giovanni, The Mikado, which is an operetta, Gilbert and Sullivan style,
Yeah.
and Oklahoma, 1776, all of these musicals. And so right after college, I thought, well, what do I want to do? So four of us actually auditioned for the Metropolitan Opera
In New York.
Well, no, they had like a scout going around the country, and there was one in Portland. So we went up and sang for the four adjudicators, and they said, "Hey, you got a great voice, but you're 21." Men in operas, it's like 35 is when the voice is
retire.
mature enough
Oh.
to get started. It's not like gymnastics or something where
Yeah.
it's mainly 35 and up for the big time guys who sing in New York. So, I'm 21. Can I make any money singing opera? No. So I got a job in TV news, but I've been able to be in plays and musicals my entire adult life. So I've been pretty lucky. And I mean, even with the Beavers, I came up with this harebrained idea in 2016 to sing.
Oh, this one's great. I know what you're talking about here.
Yeah, sing on Senior Day for international students. So 2016, we had a 6'6" center from Houston, British Columbia, Ruth Hamlin. They call her the Canadian Hammer. She was part of the Final Four team. And I always watched her, Vince, stand so tall for the U.S. anthem. And people really didn't know about my singing background, but I said, look, I want to sing the Canadian anthem for her.
Yeah.
And they were playing UCLA, and it just so happened UCLA had two Canadian players that year, and the Beavers had another one. So there was four Canadian players. So I sang it. They all cried. And then the junior player, Colby Oram, said, you're going to sing that for me next year, right? And so I did. And then in 2018, the following year, we had a player named Marie Gulish, who just played for Germany in the Olympics. She said, you're singing the German anthem, no question about it. And how about if my dad sings it with you? So we did a duet. And then the following year, we had a player from Poland. I sang Poland, Serbia. I sung that twice, Paraguay. And this year, it looks like Australia and Brazil are on better learn and better do a good job, continue that thing going. But anyway,
how's your Portuguese?
I've been able to combine all those things into a pretty cool time here in the Northwest.
How's it changed being in the game that long? How we can, I know as a consumer of media, it's changed. Sports seems to be slower to change because live matters more than other types of media. How's it changed?
I'd say the biggest change for me as a broadcaster, you're broadcasting a live event, you do the pregame show, then of course you talk to the players or coaches for the postgame show. But I had an idea. I can't remember the year. Maybe it was 2015. I don't know. Twitter, which is now X. Twitter was really popular, and so I started to
when that hit.
Yeah, I started to take my phone and just record the post-game interviews and then post them. All of a sudden, I'm saying, God, I got 3,800 views in the last 16 hours on this talking head, basically. And it was really funny because I went down to the Pac-12 tournament that year, and the other broadcasters are going, why are you doing that? People say, I mean, that's extra work. You're not getting paid to do that. But I was promoting the sport. I've always loved women's basketball. When I was working in Seattle in the late 80s, I started covering the Washington Husky team. Chris Gobrecht was the coach. I think she's still coaching at Yale. But
Yeah.
they were really good, and they were getting 5,000 fans per games, and I started to do feature stories on them. By 1991, they'd made the Sweet 16, and I think we were ahead of our time, Vince, because Cairo TV actually sent me and the photographer to Las Vegas, not to cover the games, but to do a half-hour special at 7:30 at night during that window before the networks began, at
Right.
8 o'clock. So we did a half-hour live show from the Hard Rock Cafe with the basketball team. And my buddy was from Vegas. He had a friend who worked at the Imperial Gardens. They had all of these celebrity lookalikes and soundalikes. So we got Michael Jackson, Elvis, Madonna, Roy Orbison to say, "Go Huskies, you can do it." It's so corny.
Vegas. So Vegas.
But it was so Vegas. But, I've always known women's basketball is its own thing. And it's not men's basketball. And crossing the two, I hope it never gets to the point where it's co-ed, because I was at a men's practice last
I don't
week.
see that happening, but yeah.
I hope you're right. Because the women's basketball game has its own dynamic fluidity and great passing, awesome shooting, passion, anger, excitement, family.
Yeah.
It's all, because you're the dad of one of the kids.
Yeah. No, the women's game is definitely having a moment right now in the last few years. Really spurred on by college. WNBA was a fun season. I've always watched the WNBA because of women's basketball. I just love the game. I'll watch the over 40 Jewish men's league if it's on TV like that. I love basketball. I love the game. So it's yeah. I played it in college, played it in high school. I played as much as I can. I love it. And so I watch it, the women's game, especially if you're a purist. I tell a lot of people, because you have a daughter who's been successful at basketball. I had a college career. A lot of people ask me, how do I help my kid get better? I often tell them they should be watching the women's game. If you're in high school, if you're a boy
Mm-hmm.
in high school, you should be watching the women's game, because unless you're 6'10", 6'8", you're going to play most of your game, a few rare people aside, like your Vince Carters,
Right.
your Ja Morants. Most people are not playing above the rim unless you're big. And you're watching the men's game where half the players are capable of playing above the rim. And it's a different game, where if you watch the women's game, it's going to be more comparable to what you're doing. So I'm loving the moment that women's basketball is having. Excited to see some more teams in the W coming out, with the Bay Area team next year, and that should be cool. But yeah, no, excited. So I want to pivot now to Ron. What have you been listening to now? Starting off with, opera. I'm going to be honest. Opera is tough to relate to for my listeners. But later I'll ask for some opera, where I should go start listening to opera. But when it comes to the popular music in high school, college, what were you, when were you like, when I have moments where, like, the art of music, I can remember the moment I heard a song and the context in the room I was in, because I'm very visual, that made me go, this is it. I love music. And for me, that was when my brother was playing Pink Floyd The Wall on vinyl in his bedroom, probably in 1980, maybe 79, 80, 81. And that first guitar hit, it's a big operatic opera at the beginning, In the Flesh, that first track on that album, just bang, to go from the Lawrence Welk and whatnot, Patsy Cline that was playing in the house by my parents, to my brother just playing rock. I'll never forget it. I'm like, I'm in music. Let's go. What were you listening to? What got you, how'd you get into music? What were you listening to?
Like I mentioned to you earlier, my mom was a huge influence on me as far as music goes. My dad too. And they were different. My mom was the Andy Williams, Johnny Mathis, and she got me into the musicals and like Oklahoma, things like that. But my dad,
Rodgers and Hammerstein.
Yeah, my dad, he's a World War II vet, Korea, and he loved Creedence Clearwater.
Ah.
So I remember sitting in the car in line at the Bank of America in Napa, California, where I grew up. And he's playing down in the corner. I'm going, Dad, that sounds so cool. So I started listening to Creedence. And then the year before, my
basically
sister,
a local band if you're from NorCal.
right. And my sister was 3 years older. And we had, my aunt and uncle lived in San Francisco, but she was 3 years older. So I was kind of a, innocent who loved sports and I love music, but she loved the Beatles. And I remember, I think it was February 9th, 1964, when she says, get in here. It was the Ed Sullivan Show, and the Beatles made their debut in the U.S. on that TV show.
Yeah.
I think the ratings were like as high as they can go back in those days.
Shut down the country for half an hour.
Yeah, but she became an influence on me as far as rock goes, because she would go down to San Francisco when I was home, because, well, let's say she's 16, I was 13, and she would go to the Fillmore, and she saw, you name the band, in their zenith. I mean, 1966 to 72, the golden age of rock and roll.
Yeah.
There was no auto tune and there was no electronic drums. I mean, it was just amazing stuff. But I was 14 and my parents were out of town. They'd gone to Fort Bragg to get away. And so she goes, you're coming with me. I said, where are we going? We're going to the fairgrounds. There's a concert. So I said, okay. And so we get there and there's two bands, Big Brother and the Holding Company and the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
I had no idea. But after Big Brother and the Holding Company with Janis Joplin, I was just blown away by her incredibly amazing voice that I don't know if it's ever been anybody quite like her. And then the Grateful Dead, a jam band, but and I've grown to just love them. And I really started learning to listen to Fish because of a friend of mine. So have you heard the great story about Fish and the St. Louis Blues?
No. Is that was a festival, right? Or is that a band, St. Louis Blues?
No, that's the hockey team.
Well, yeah, of course, the hockey team.
So anyway,
my
quick story.
My hockey phase was very short, maybe like 1993 to 96. I was paying attention to hockey.
Well, in the 2018-19 season,
okay,
the Blues were awful. They started off and they were dreadful, and so they were like 2-10. And so they fired the coach, they got rid of the goalie, and they were on a road trip to Philadelphia. So the guys, the players who were on the team, they went out, in fact, 3 of them went out to this pub in Philly. And they heard a song. And the song was called Gloria by Laura Branigan. Are you familiar?
I can play it.
Hey, can you play it? I could sing it, but I can't do it justice. But anyway, this song by Laura Branigan, because in those days, even just 5 years ago, when a team went, here you go.
Oh, yeah, I know the song. I can hear this on an organ at a hockey game.
Right, but very 80s. But she sings about Gloria.
I know that one.
But
that played at Wrigley Field all the time.
They heard this song and they said that could be a great song after we win. And then they're thinking, well, we never win. But they got back. They got a new goalie. They got a new coach. And they started winning. And they started playing that song at the end when they won. And the fans started getting into it. Long story short, they won the Stanley Cup that year. Never had won it before. And so Laura Branigan and Gloria in the city of St. Louis are like, she's a goddess. And that song is...
Did she ever show up and play live at a game that season?
She had passed away in 2002.
Oh, okay.
She passed away young. So anyway, the day after they won the Stanley Cup, Fish was in concert in St. Louis. So they learned the song, and after the intermission, they came out and did that after, and it's on YouTube. Check it out because it's pretty amazing.
Fans went nuts.
And so I love Fish. I grew up totally obsessed with the Bee Gees because I love Barry Gibb's voice. And so, I mean, it's pretty, he can do the falsetto like no other, but he has another side to his voice, especially if you listen to songs that are from their first genesis as a major rock band, pop band, when they had songs like
disco-y.
Well, they had Words, To Love Somebody, Holiday. I could go on and on. But and then of course disco, they were like out of control as far as
Owned it.
popular. They had like 5 songs in the top 10 in 1978 or 9. I mean, that was just beyond ridiculous, right? And then their little brother Andy came on and had his own number ones, songs that were written by Barry. And Barry, he put out an album in 2021, some of his old hits with country duets, like
Yeah.
Brandy Carlisle and people like that. Alison Krauss, I really love. I've become really excited about. I watched this George and Tammy special on Showtime. Those songs are
Who?
amazing. They're
Who?
amazing. George Jones and Tammy Wynette,
Oh, okay.
2 old school country folks. So that,
Yeah.
and then
I
Gordon
don't mind old
Lightfoot.
school country. It's the Garth Brooks branch of country. Like it
Yeah,
kind of it became
that's
like pop
90s.
country. I don't really care for it. And then it became like I always called it radio country. Like I like the the kind of real country, Texas outlaw country they would call it,
Right.
or even your older stuff, your Patsy Cline, Conway Twitty. Like I like that stuff, Johnny Cash. But when it became kind of poppy, and even got some electronic elements to it, it really lost me. But I'm interested to see what's happening now, like with Post Malone's country
Yep.
album. I think that's really interesting.
I've not
happening.
heard that. I'm going to check it out because you just told me about it.
My wife's been spinning it nonstop since it came out, 2 months ago. It's been, it's a 2-disc set. Or okay, so
Wow.
the first disc is every song pretty much is Post Malone with a current country singer. I think Dolly Parton's even got a jam on there, and all the current hot country singers. And then the second disc, it's most people are on Spotify or whatever, is just his stuff. It's all his songs, but it's just him doing them on the second. Really neat and catchy. So I've been exposed to it a bunch. But yeah, country went through a moment there in the 90s where it took a shift, and I think it's starting to recover.
Shania Twain was a big aspect of the crossover country song.
Yeah.
And she was, she's another one of those Canadian gems who are very talented. She can play all these instruments. Her voice is shot now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But she went on tour last year. I went and saw her. I got a surprise birthday present from a friend up in Seattle. She paid $469 a ticket. That's a lot.
Concerts are expensive.
Yeah.
If you want to go to a big show, my son and I went to see the Gorillas last year, the year before, and it was for 2 tickets. It was $700 to have halfway decent seats. It's crazy. That's where the money is now. I think because of streaming, they're having to tour harder, bigger venues. It costs more, and you're almost always buying on resale. And even like the local show, like my wife and I went to see Prof a few weeks ago. Kind of a lesser known rapper, and I think it was $35-$40 a ticket for something that it used to be $10, not too many years ago, but well worth it. Great show. How are you getting into what's the new stuff you're getting into in the last 10-20 years? I always kind of like since maybe 2000. As we've shifted away from radio to streaming, it's become harder to find stuff. What are you listening to? What's new?
You know what I really love, and my son and I we've both seen all of these 3 bands in concert. And the first one was a band called Audioslave with Chris Cornell.
Yeah.
He was in Soundgarden before that. We went and saw them live, and I just think I Am the Highway. That's a song I like to sing at karaoke. And also another band is Imagine Dragons. He took me to that one. I thought that was pretty cool. But the one I fell in love with because of the pure sound of his voice is a guy that was vilified because his first hit was so huge. It was played so much that people started to make fun of the song. And it's a song called You're Beautiful by James Blount.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was played so much, but I've seen him in concert 3 times, and it's so much fun. I saw him at McMenamin's Edgefield. We saw him at the Rose Garden at the time, the smaller, I think it's called Student Stadium of the Gods or something. It was a small 6,000 seat venue, and saw him in California once. So I love him, but of course Chris Cornell's gone, but his music lives on. And I mean, and that's not that recent. I mean, my daughter Lily, she loves Post Malone. She's gone to she went and saw the festival in L.A. It was in late summer before she moved to Nashville.
Of the K Rock Festival, I think.
Yeah,
Isn't
something like that. There were so many bands. Well, Kanye West came out with his daughter, and she said it was a weird time. And but she loves hip hop, and so I remember I went up to Seattle after I had a ankle surgery, and she had to drive me up there to do this thing for the Seahawks because I work for the Seahawks,
Yeah.
at their home games, and so I listened to a lot of hip hop, and it's pretty repetitious, but some of it's pretty engaging.
Well, you're listening to stadium game time hip hop, so it's a small rotation, I would imagine.
Indeed. But you know what? I mean, hey, every generation has its thing.
Yeah.
And I think music does have to maneuver and move and have the evolution of taking it to the next level. And that's, I mean, because I'll put on
and pissing off their parents.
Yeah, I'll put on like a Brett album from 1972, or listen to something like that, and I go, wow, that is so well done, and that's all actual instruments. Oh, those are real drums. I mean, the electronic stuff can be good, but I'm a real fan of purity when it comes
I
to
think
rock
what
and
you
roll.
would like. I often when I talk to, quite frankly, middle-aged and up white guys, I'm often thinking, what hip hop could I get you into that you would like? And a couple episodes ago, we were talking about this concept that the comedian actually raised. Where her premise was, poor people don't listen to Radiohead. And I don't know how much you listen to Radiohead.
I've got one song on my phone.
It was a joke, but the joke has to be wrapped in truth. And Radiohead and some of that type of music, where it's very palette forward, right? It's very artistic. It's not surface level. Requires you to be in touch with your existential self, and you can only be in touch and enter your existential self when your other four areas of need are met. You're physically healthy, you're socially, mentally, and emotionally in a good place. And if you're poor, you're often up against it. You spend a lot of time not being able to have a space to be in your existential self. And so when you look at where hip hop comes from, and I flip that, well, the flip of that is, well, if it's a hip hop thing, hip hop is, at least at its roots, where it came from, it was a real life narrative of what they were seeing. They weren't getting into the existential self. Yeah. So I let most people, the people that are into Radiohead or very artistic, very music that requires them to focus and be in touch with the existential self, is categorically different than what hip hop originally was, which was this narrative of what's happening in real life. It's the opposite. And if you didn't experience that, you couldn't understand the context because you didn't witness it. Or even in my case, having grown up playing basketball, spent a lot of my life in immersed in the Black community as secondhand witness to this narrative. So I could relate to it. So hip hop's always been close to my heart. So to the musician, the musicianship in hip hop is not the instruments and the music. It's the lyricism and the wordplay. Mm-hmm. So if you can tune into the wordplay and be impressed by how they can, not just the rhyming and the phonetics, but the way they can bend and make an art out of playing with words is fantastic. And so there's your rap is out there, and I think it's what I would call lyricists who really tell a story and are poetic about that, or with their words. And Eminem is one of the great examples where he can take, he famously takes words that don't even rhyme, and he can make you think they're rhyming and throw in this double entendre. So I'm going to find you the hip hop that you like, and I think it's going to be lyric based.
I love it.
You have to be okay with that being wrapped in a veneer of dick jokes.
Hey,
because
I know there's a lot of MFers and things like
yeah,
that, and I've heard a lot because I've listened to my daughter's stuff,
yeah,
But now I sent you that Kavinsky.
yeah.
I
I
don't know
dig
if
it.
you've had a chance to hear that. If you, that was my daughter Lily actually said, "Dad, you'll like this,"
Yeah,
and I do.
and I'm
Night
trying to
Call.
think.
I
I
think it's
think
called
you
Night
would
Call by
like.
Kavinsky.
I think you might like Lil Dicky, who is almost comedic in his wordplay, but his wordplay is very good, and he's very self-deprecating in his humor. He's hilarious, and he actually did a show on Hulu called Dave, where he
Well, I
does
have Hulu. Can I watch it?
watch Dave. Yeah, he doesn't do much rapping on there, but you get a sense of his humor, and
Okay.
again, you could see that he raps really heavy truths about mental health in dick jokes. And so if you can't get past the sarcasm and the jokes, you'll miss the good stuff. And I think that was always part of what hip hop is. It's saying, if you can't get past this, then this isn't for you. Like you don't get to be part of the team if you can't get past our jokes and understand the context, because we're really saying something, or I'm really saying something, and this isn't free. It's almost like self-filtering out the people who aren't going to get it. That's what I love about hip hop. But I think your hip hop's out there, and I think Lil Dicky might be something to get into. But I
Well,
want to now go ahead.
you brought up storytelling,
Yeah,
and some of my favorite singers are songwriters who put together magical songs that take you into a different place that
yeah,
are
it's a
so
journey.
well. The journey is so well told. Examples, just two. One would be Joni Mitchell, another
Yep.
Canadian, who wrote a song called "Urge for Going." The visualization that she creates, I think, is amazing. Same thing with Gordon Lightfoot. These are all Canadian artists that I'm talking about. Gordon
Yeah.
Lightfoot, before your time, Vince. But Gordon Lightfoot wrote a song called The Watchman's Gone. And the reason I know about that song, it's not a big hit. It's not like The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald or
I'll
Sundown.
link them in the show notes.
But the song The Watchman's Gone, as you get into your 60s and 70s, you start hearing songs about death or when you're going, or
Yeah.
that topic becomes more interesting to you because you've made it this far, but you know there's an end somewhere. And The Watchman's Gone is an amazing song about facing it all. And not don't be afraid. Just make every day the best you can. But The Watchman's Gone, and the musicianship in it is pretty tremendous, which is a great combo. A great story with some great music.
I love it. I love it. So moving into, I want to fast forward to the 90s, because you were around for a very important part, during your prime in teenage and early 20s, when rock and roll was becoming a thing.
Right.
And then music kind of just did its thing for a while. And then come the 90s, which may be the last, I tell a lot of people, I think it's probably the last time we'll see the globe of music fans paying attention to a few bands or a genre or a musical movement, because now we're all dispersed. We don't have a common channel, whether it be MTV or a few radio stations, where we're all listening to the same thing, or at least so many of us are listening to the same thing. And that was really with the kind of the grunge movement and becoming alternative rock, where I think it climaxed. I joke a lot of time, I have to find the graphic, with probably Radiohead's OK Computer in 97. So like 1990 to 1997 was this period in music that was, it was huge. It was what foundations for my music listening. But it was the last time I think music went through this huge evolution, this huge just surge of change that everybody was paying attention to, and we don't really see it anymore. What was your take on that? What were you digging there? What was your mindset?
Was I was living in Seattle and I was digging grunge.
Yeah.
I was digging. I actually did a live report from the Seattle waterfront because there was a pop up concert by Nirvana.
Yeah.
And they said, Ron, get down there. And so I was like way in the back with a microphone and a photographer. And you couldn't really enjoy it. But I was there for Nirvana. But there's a place in Seattle called the Crocodile Cafe, where a lot of bands would go and hang out and play. And so we would go see grunge bands there. In fact, I got involved in the TV rock band, which is covers. And we played the Crocodile Cafe. So everybody was so jealous
Nice.
because we actually played the venue on a Monday night, in front of about 50 people
What
probably.
songs you cover?
I was the one who came in and did San Francisco by Scott Mckensie.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with that. Also, I did Wild Thing by the Trogs. I did Secret Agent Man by Johnny Rivers.
Nice.
And but we did all sorts of stuff. We had a Beatles guy who just loved doing Beatles stuff, and I was more into I did the Doors, Love Her Madly, because I could do a pretty good Jim Morrison. So I did Love Her
I
Madly.
bet you could do a good Jim Morrison.
I loved his voice. Too bad.
Here's San Francisco.
Yeah.
Francisco. Oh yeah. Yeah, I know this tune.
It's about
That's a Dorcal jam right there.
It's like 67 about the Summer of Love,
Yeah.
which I actually got hooked up into just for about 30 minutes. I was going on the Greyhound bus with my friend Gordon Bell to see the Giants play the Braves at Candlestick.
Yep.
But we were early, so we said, let's go buy this Haight-Ashbury. And so we went down there, and it was just the weirdest, craziest group of people. And I'm like this naive 14-year-old from Napa, Leave It to Beaver Land, right? And so we walked around, and all I heard was, green, you want green? And I didn't know what green was, and I figured it out. But we ended up getting out the Candlestick, and I think I caught 2 foul balls in batting practice that day, so that was good stuff.
Nice. So yeah, no, 90s were big, and then radio dies.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, how have you managed to stay up to date? Because as we kind of look at some of the music you've been picking up, you've picked up recent stuff compared to your peers. When I talk to people of your generation, they've pretty much stopped listening to new music after once the 80s stuff started hitting. They were just like, I'm out, and classic rock is where they stopped. You kept maturing in your art consumption.
I think because I've always been involved.
Teach us.
Always been involved in music, but my youngest daughter Lily was born in 1999. So when she started to get old enough to appreciate music, she would want to play certain songs, and so I would try to keep up. That's when we got involved. And my son and I got involved with Audioslave, and but it was changing. And the radio station I worked at when I moved to Portland was, I'm working 5 to 9 a.m. doing sports. And then I'd be off at 9, but I'd probably go to a Blazer practice and such. But we would also, a lot of people in that station were young. And a couple of the guys that produced the sports show that I did, it was a nightly 2-hour talk show. And they had, they were young guys, and they were saying, you need to go listen to this. How about, and they would give me music to listen to. And so that kept me up somewhat. Yeah. But you want to keep up. When you've got a daughter, you want to make sure you're not too old manish, right? And so
the tip here is keep young people in your life.
Yeah.
And give their stuff a chance. Don't make fun of it.
When we're on a road trip with the Beavers, sometimes we have vans, and the players, and the assistant coaches are playing usually mostly rap, things like that. There's a couple I know, I mean, I tried. I won't embarrass myself, but I have a song from an opera that's from the Marriage of Figaro that I've turned into a rap. I've never sung it for anybody, so maybe someday.
There's gotta be a rap track that samples some opera.
Yeah,
that you could play. That's what we got to give you. We got to give you a track for them to put in the queue next time you're in the van with the team and go.
That would be so fun.
Check out this jam and just blow their minds with something. I think I have some stuff I can load up for you.
Back when Sidney Weiss and that group we were down in Southern California, we had some kind of a delay. We're in the bus, and then somebody said, "Hey, we're in Beverly Hills," and so I got on the mic on the bus, and I know the Beverly Hillbilly song by heart from the TV show, so I sang that, and so that warmed their hearts. They enjoyed it, and so now I've got a quirky, eclectic background from when I was a kid, because I was kind of a latchkey kid, and I knew every song from Gilligan's Island, Petticoat Junction, I know all those tunes.
I think this might be your track that I think we're going to Ron's track next time he's with
Let's
the
hear
team. And I think Coach will approve it because it doesn't have any cuss words in it. This is a recent discovery. I saw him live a month or two ago opening for somebody. Never heard of him. It's still unknown rapper.
Let's hear him.
But old school. His name's Norman Sand. This song is called "Dance at a Funeral," and I think it's got the hype that you're going to need for the squad.
Don't really care about the top spot, I just want a bag. Got my foot up on their necks, no brakes, all gas. These rappers like BBLs, cause I swear they all ass. Ain't it crazy how they rise up and fizzle out fast? Oh my God, boy, who that over there with all them stands in the stands? Got them dancing with grand jumping high as they can on the stands. Got a plan, I'm taking over them.
That's it. That's the one. I'll send that to you.
Send
you
it to
keep
me.
that in your back pocket. Next time they're queuing up music. Hey guys, cue up this song. You got to send it to them because I'm curious.
Yeah,
because
I love that, and I will do that. And it reminds me, though, that the guy from Seattle, I was on the set with him. He has one huge hit.
Sir Mix-a-Lot?
Yes, Sir Mix-a-Lot. He was really nice. He was
a few bigger Seattle rappers.
Yeah. Seattle, it was grunge, and that was their A game, But he was really good. And then Macklemore, nice guy. And thrift shop, all that good stuff.
Well, then what's next? What's Ron got cooking? Are you doing some football? Basketball season starting to wind up. What's it looking like?
We've got 4 football games left, but I only will be at 2 of them because of road trips for women's basketball. When you're the play-by-play, that's kind of like your number one gig, right?
Yeah.
Even though I've been doing football the same length of time for them. In fact, I did Seahawks sidelines and pregame for 10 years before I did Beavers. So I've done that for that's been a long time career. That's been a lot of fun. It's just fun.
Are you still doing that with the Seahawks?
Well, now I'm at their home games only. We did home and away then, but I go to the Seahawks games and I sit in the NFL stats booth. Good seat right next to the coaches. And so my job, Vince, I'm sitting in front of a microphone. And after every play, I announce the official stats to the media. So let's say there's a play, it's a running game. Vince Murat, the ball carrier, number 22, a pickup of 6, tackled by number 58, Derek Hill, a pickup of 7, second down and 3.
Yeah.
Over and over for every play.
So they can repeat it. So you're actually you're the man behind the man.
They can see it on computers now, but they still want that, because they don't know the exact. I mean, I hear it when they're yelling it out.
Yeah.
And I just regurgitate all this yelling. So I hear yelling for 3 hours. 28!
That sounds chaotic.
It's pretty chaotic, but it's an incredible buffet. And they pay us.
Let me know if you need an assist on that one Sunday. I'll come up.
Everybody wants to come up and hang up there, even though to hang, it's no fun.
No, it would probably be nonsense.
I've had my son and daughter, my son and my oldest daughter, come with me to see what it was like. And so after about the first quarter, they said, "Can we go down? Can we go find a seat somewhere?" I said, "Well, go ahead, go have fun,
All right. Well, last question I like to ask all people: first concert, best concert.
Oh, I'd say first concert that I really went to when I was in college in Portland. We saw The Fifth Dimension.
The Fifth Dimension.
Up, up and away, and the beautiful balloon. The other one is...
Oh, yeah.
What's the other?
Fifth
Aquarius. Dimension. They did the song Aquarius from Hair.
Yeah, that's their big hit.
And that is Marilyn McCoo in there. She was a big hit. And then the best concert ever, there's no doubt. I'm filling in
I
for
would
a
say
guy.
No Doubt is probably the best concert
They're
ever.
pretty good. I like No Doubt. I play this song, this video, and this game on my phone called Song Pop. I've been playing it for 9 years.
Yeah.
It's basically keeps your brain going. I might have told you about it.
Yeah, I tried it one time, but I immediately sucked at it, so I quit.
So anyway, I'm doing a radio show, and Barry Gibb was on a solo tour in 2014. So we have an open segment, and I saw on Facebook the name of the person who's in charge of publicity for Barry Gibb. So I said, let's get her on the show.
Yeah.
Turns out this woman from Florida, Ann Levikowski or something like that, really cool woman, about in her 70s, in Fort Lauderdale. And so we did the interview, and I know a lot about Barry Gibb, and it was exciting. But I was depressed that I was going to miss out this live tour because I'd seen the Bee Gees in the mid 70s
Right.
before their disco day. I saw them in Portland at the Paramount. So she goes, hey, you know what? My friend Gladys, she can't make it to the concert in San Francisco. And it was the next day. And so I said, well, she goes, there's first row seat. It's $250 ticket. And this is like live on the radio. And she goes, do you want to come or not? And I said, I'm in.
Yeah.
So I got up at 5 a.m. I drove, started driving to California. And right when I got to the California border, the song Islands in the Stream came on, which is Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers, but it was written by Barry Gibb.
Yeah.
And so I said, this is, then I heard Jive talking, and then I heard a couple of more. So I got down there, and it was an amazing concert, first row. I mean, normally you get good seats, but this was first row. And so I felt pretty privileged to have that. And I hung out with her, and I met some other women there that I'm still in contact with 10 years later because they're also obsessive fans of Barry Gibb.
That's
So,
awesome. Those
it
are
was
the
an
best
awesome
shows.
concert.
I've had that experience too, where it was a Today situation where one of the Beastie Boys shows I went to was like someone had
wow.
a ticket and couldn't make it. Like, hey, I got a ticket. Can you go? I'm like, yes, I'm in. I'm
Yes.
going. And one of the best shows I've ever been to. Well, awesome, Ron. Thanks for being on the
Hey,
pod.
thanks for having me. And I'm
Always
sure,
excited to learn from people more experienced than me on how they're staying connected to art.
well, I love your show. I love your podcast. And you saved my butt one time on Maui. We had some kind of a delay of game, and I can't remember exactly why. I don't know what happened, but the bottom line is you came on and you were like a pro.
A game went long, I think, and NCAA requires 24 minutes of warm up, and so you had to kill 15 minutes, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and you were a standout performer.
I can bullshit with the best of them.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on, Ron. You be well.
We'll see you soon.
So, John, I strategically gave you Baraka for homework because it is art that you have to be with. And the challenge is simple. Just pay attention, right? That's the challenge. And so I wanted to, there's two reasons for this next piece of homework. And it's a movie again. We'll do books maybe next year, but movies. Okay. This is one of those movies that when I sense somebody really loves movies and really wants to be challenged by movies, this is a movie I like to put them onto. It's from Denis Villeneuve, which is why I want to bring it up, because in January timeframe, we're going to do an episode on just the catalog of Denis Villeneuve, who is one of the best directors of all time, and he's current, he's recent. This movie was the first one that is a feature-length film that really broke him. This is the movie that got people to pay attention to Denis Villeneuve in 2008. So he's recent. So he's done the Dune movies, Blade Runner 2049, Sicario, Arrival, and Prisoners was his first hit for Americans. And so the movie is called Incendie. It's French. If you look at it, it's spelling, it looks like it's incendies is how you would pronounce it in English pronunciation. And 2010 actually, so it's even newer than I thought. Scratch that. So it is in French because he's French. He's French Canadian. He's from Montreal, where I guess half the people there speak French, half speak English.
Nice.
And it is one of the movies that it gives you a glimpse into what Denis Villeneuve is known for, and that is delivering surprise, not doing the normal thing and then hitting you in the face with a surprise. So Arrival you saw, and that was one of the most surprising major pictures I'd seen in a long time. I remember seeing it. I was delighted to be surprised by the reveal in Arrival when I don't want to give it away here, but the reveal in Arrival was just beautiful, captivating. You're like, I was there. And so this one, the reveal, is one of the most emotionally complex moments I've ever experienced watching a movie. You are equally angry and enraged. You are equally happy and sad, like all at the same time. Like it's like it's really it's just a WTF moment, but like you're also just impressed at what you know, the ride you were just on and the reveal.
Sweet.
Really cool movie. It is, you know, independent production, so it's you know, low budget but really well done. It's Incendie, 2010. It's really Denis Villeneuve. So on the heels of that, that's how he got the gig to do Prisoners, which is the big hit. You know, and also you get a look at his ability to deliver surprise. And it's just or conceal surprise, and that's been his hallmark. And so Incendies, it's not you have to read subtitles because it's almost entirely in French, or but it works well, and it's one of those ones, which is why we start with Baraka. You have to be with this one, but you have to be with it even harder because you have to read the dialogue.
Okay.
But it flows really well.
All
It's just an incredible movie. It can mess you up, right? You have to be ready for that. So make sure you're in a good place. I'm just like, I got spare time. I'm gonna throw it on. I got 2 hours. It's like, no, you and the other thing is you have to watch this in one sitting. You don't want to pause it and come back to it. So it's going to force you to find 2 hours where nobody's going to bother you. You don't have to watch it on a great system. It's not a big audiovisual spectacular thing. It's just an unbelievably good story. Unbelievably
I'm looking forward to it.
And so, but powerful, and it could mess you up, but you know, you're at the end of the day, it is entertaining, and that's what we want. And I want to be surprised. I want to be challenged,
to be
and
moved.
This is one of those movies. So, Incendie by Denis Villeneuve. So
mission accepted.
Check that out. You got time. So you got next week off. So where you can carve out some time over the holiday to just, you know, grab your iPad or whatever and just lay on the couch and watch this with your headphones on. It's that kind of movie. So big fan of it. Anything we didn't know about Thanksgiving? What's your go-to dish? What's the banger?
Man, past couple of years I've fried a turkey. So I'm definitely down south in Texas now, because that's
you're a fan of the turkey fry.
It's just fun, a little dangerous, you know, and it's fast. It cooks it pretty fast, but I like the way it turns out.
How long does it take to cook a turkey?
Well, there's some math involved, but
based on
I would
size,
say, exponentially quicker. I mean, I do my homework before I do it, because I do forget some of the temperatures and the times. But
so like 20 minutes, 30 minutes?
Especially if it's like thawed, you know. Well, you have to thaw it. If it's not thawed, it'll blow up.
Did you grow up with your mom cooking the turkey for 8 hours?
Oh yeah, totally.
Right.
Yeah, basting it and roasting it in the oven. Yeah. This is.
I will get a bunch of phone calls and texts this year about how to cook a turkey. For most people, you're going to have access to an oven. The turkey fryer, it's a whole different specialty. You got to have gear. There's some danger to it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But the way if you went into a professional kitchen and they were going to cook a turkey, roast a turkey in an oven, this is how they would do it. They're not going to stuff it with anything. They're going to cook it hot and fast. Okay. So, you know, I'll just say this so that everyone can know it, and I'll send this to my friends. To cook your turkey the professional way, you thaw it out, oil that bad boy up, just salt and pepper, lots of salt and pepper on the outside. If you want, you can throw a couple sprigs of fresh thyme or oregano or rosemary in the cavity. Obviously, take all the stuff out of the cavity. You know, gizzard, all that stuff. Put it in a stock pot with some chicken broth, and just simmer it all day while everything else is happening. Because I can cook all of Thanksgiving dinner. I did it last year for 16 people, 3 hours. Okay, so you get the bird, oil it, salt and pepper. That's it. Get your oven up to, most home ovens will do about 525. Dime it out, 525. Okay.
All right.
Take the legs, make sure make sure the legs are untied and just
Mhm.
sprayed out. That body's just got to be free. 'Cause you
Yep.
don't want this
Okay.
big dense thing
Kind of
takes
flatten it
longer to
down a
cook,
little bit.
right? Sometimes you got to cover depending on the size of the bird, you'll have to cover the ends of the legs and maybe the tips of the wings with foil for about half the cook.
Because it'll just fry off.
It'll cook too
Yeah.
fast. They're too thin.
Yeah.
And then depending on the temp you're trying to get to right in the thigh, you're going to cook it for between 5 and 7 minutes per pound, right? So you're less than 2 hours on most birds,
Mhm.
hour and a half. You get a smaller one, you might be around an hour. And that's it. Take it out. What we say, tent it in foil. So you're putting foil over it, but you don't want the foil
Yep.
to touch it.
You want
right?
that
'Cause
steam.
it's going to come out of there. It looks like Better Homes and Gardens, baby. It's crispy and just beautiful. And if you put the foil on there, it'll steam too much close to it, and you'll lose the crispiness of the skin. Foil
Okay,
it for
gotcha.
like half an hour. With a traditional like regular chicken that you would roast, the French way is you rest it for as long as you cooked it. So if you cooked it for 20 minutes, you rest it for 20 minutes. Let that bad boy rest, let it chill, make your gravy, finish up your potatoes.
Just keep those juices in there.
Have that done. If you're putting your turkey in, you're putting it in a bag and you're stuffing it with stuff and putting it in the oven for 6 hours.
You're fooling too much with all that.
That's dry. That's your dry turkey, bro. That's whack, right? Don't do it. And last tip, don't cut it until everybody's about to sit down. Because as soon as you start cutting it open, it starts drying out. You got it right. From cut to serve's got to be minutes. You don't cut it and then just stash it over there for an hour. Like that's the last thing you do. So stop. If you're just regular oven, that's the way to do it. Deep frying's awesome. I've had some good ones there. I like smoking, can work out pretty well. But man, the old school, what your grandma used to do, they just did that because they didn't know any better, and they just wanted, and it comes out all pale looking.
Yeah. I love that scene in Christmas Vacation when he cooks the turkey and it just splits in half. Wheezes.
Yeah. And I think this year we're doing ribeye and salmon or something. I mean, we're not doing turkey at all. But I'll do a turkey dinner for my family after Thanksgiving. So
there you go.
Well, awesome.
Sweet.
We'll catch you guys all after Turkey Day.
Right.
So
happy Thanksgiving.
All right, man.
Big stunner, 100. You stupid, just shut up. Keep breezy, I'm gonna. I'm big boy, done.